for the Gifted and Talented Masterclass program that we're going to be running this week, the art department is asking you to look into your own cultures and find objects or particular art or artifacts and talk about them both as a piece of art, but also as part of your history and of your culture, and look at it from an anthropological perspective. Your submissions are going to be 3 to 5 minute long videos, so that you're going to be talking through a few different questions, which we'll give you, that will help guide you. But we want to see what you can say about your own culture and about the art that exists within it, and tie that in with history. Ms. Laura and I are taking the opportunity to look at our own cultures and provide you with some examples. Obviously, our examples are not going to be as long as yours because we're looking for 3 to 5 minutes from you, but we want to give you a little taste of what we're talking about. So, with no further ado, we're going to take a look first at some ancient pottery from Greece, which is representative of my own culture. So, ancient Greek pottery, we've all seen it before in museums and galleries. It pops up all the time, but I really find it interesting when I'm looking at my own culture to look at the pottery, because for me, when I'm looking at it from a perspective of art, I enjoy the colors. I think the shapes of the vases are very interesting. There's a lot of similarities, but they're also unique depending on what region they're from. But I'm more interested in it in the sense of the anthropological perspective. Because of the scenes that have been painted on all these vases, they give us a very clear window into what life was like in ancient Greece, into what stories were important, what events were important. They're a record about all the happenings. And so it really gives us a very clear picture of what was going on and what was important to the people. We understand their lives, but we also understand that this was an object for practical use. These vases weren't sitting on some museum shelf in ancient Greece. These were sitting on a dusty street corner filled with whatever wares that were being sold. And someone would come by and they would buy a product and they would take it home in one of these vases. So this was just a practical container, no different than the jars or cans that are currently inside your cupboards. It's really interesting as well because things like this are obsolete now. When we think of purchasing something, it is those cans and jars at home. They're mass produced for mass consumption. We don't find pieces like this nowadays. You don't go to the grocery store and bring home olive oil in a container like this. It doesn't happen anymore. So this type of art is obsolete. And although it's obsolete for us, it was actually the norm for so many cultures across the world. I'm particularly looking at ancient Greek pottery, but every country, every region of the world had their own version of this. And the shapes might be slightly different of the vases. The designs will look different. What they were painted with might look different. The type of clay they use might be different. Things will change, but this concept repeats throughout human history. We all came to the idea that we need some sort of vessel to carry things in. And, since we're making this, we might as well make it look good. And that's really interesting because nowadays, making something look good is not priority because it's tucked away in a cupboard. And although advertising might attempt to, or packaging might be designed, as nicely as it can be, they're really trying to sell it. But if you look at these, you don't know what each of these vases would have held. They're not actually demonstrating what they were selling. The person who sold them to a buyer at that time, they would have been the ones doing the actual selling. I feel like looking at this pottery, it gives me insights into the culture very clearly of what was going on. And I think I appreciate it more because of it. It's interesting that when people were digging up archaeological sites illegally, they would often leave the pottery behind or they'd break it. They wouldn't care about it. It wasn't a priority. They were looking for gold and things like that they could sell for money. And this wasn't important, which is why so much of it that we do have is broken, not only because of time, but because people didn't see the importance of it. And yet now, through close study, we've been able to understand a culture that's very far removed and make links to it.
So the object I'm going to talk about as an anthropological documentation is the alebrije, which is from Mexico. The alebrije is a mythological creature that connects the living people with the other side of death. So meaning it's a creature that will help people cross over, and it is seen as something that connects society. So in Mexico, the Day of the Dead is a very important tradition in which we remember the people that passed away, and we bring them to life in a very unique and folkloric and colorful way. And the alebrijes represent this. So there are spirits that help souls cross from one side to the other one. And it does focus on a cultural and social context because it was brought to life in the 30s in a big parade. And nowadays it's a very traditional item to take and buy when you go to Mexico as an art piece to take home. And each of the alebrijes is unique. It's a very mixed creature that doesn't have a specific context, but it doesn't have a specific description. It could be a mix between a rabbit, a tiger, and it can have wings because it is a spiritual being. And it determines that it's a very, for us Mexicans, the value of death is very, very important and very connected to being proud of who we are and where we're going. So this object represents so many aspects. And it is a form of expression because you can create your own alebrije with paper mache, and there's no right or wrong. It just has to represent animals and spirits, and it is a matter of cultural expression.
So this is an example of what we're asking you to do. Okay, as you can see from both Ms. Lera's video and myself, we're looking at artifacts from our own cultures and what we can come to conclusions of and what we appreciate, and whether it's art, anthropology, history, what does it make us think of? Bring these ideas together, record your video, and submit them so that we can see what you know about art in this masterclass.